Very special guest. Lacy Cooper is in the house, and I want to thank her for coming down, especially on Father's Day on a Sunday. I don't know if we could have made it more inconvenient.
Well, happy Sunday. Thanks so much for having me, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, great. Okay, Lacy is making a run at being Arizona's Attorney General, and that said, I'm going to give you the floor. Give us a little bit on your background, your credentials, and so on. Just kind of set the table. Who's Lacy?
Well, I was born in New Mexico, right on the Texas border. So I know you've been talking Texas this morning already.
Oh, boy.
I like her already.
Born in oil country, though. It's not the prettiest part of New Mexico. But we moved here when I was 7. So I really grew up here in the valley. I went to Dobson High School and then went away to college in Texas. I went to A&M for my undergrad and University of Texas for law school. So
Aggies, yeah.
and then hook 'em, right? So I'm a little schizophrenic when it comes to college football because I went to rival schools.
Oh, man.
Oh, you're a Longhorn too, huh?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Oh, jeez.
I know it.
Talk about confused.
Then I came back here to practice law. So I started my career up in Payson. I was a deputy county attorney up there. It was fun living in a small town. I would prosecute people in the morning and then see them at the Walmart in the evening, right? Because that's just life in a small town.
Well, how'd that work out for you?
I loved it. I enjoyed it. There are only 3 attorneys to handle all the crimes happening in northern Gila County because that's actually, it's not the county seat. Globe is the county seat, so it's the satellite office. So I got thrown in the deep end pretty quickly, and I loved that because I learned very quickly. I had some great teachers, and I soon became the sex crimes prosecutor up there. So I put some child molesters behind bars for the rest of their lives. I led the drug task force, and I helped protect our elderly population up there. There's a lot of folks who were being financially exploited, and so I would prosecute people who were defrauding our elderly folks up there. And I then moved back here to Phoenix and worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was a federal prosecutor, and I actually became the Border Security Section Chief at the U.S. Attorney's Office.
That's pretty hardball. What year was that? If you don't mind me asking.
2013 is when I joined the U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay. And almost everything that I did there related to border security. I prosecuted coyotes, bringing people across the border illegally. I prosecuted cartels. I did cartel wiretap investigations. I even prosecuted some terrorists who had exploited loopholes in our immigration laws in order to get into this country. So I felt, I spent 8 years protecting our southern border. And then this new guy moved into the White House, and he didn't seem like he was going to care about border security as much as I had. And so I left with the goal and intention of fighting back against the Biden administration and his open borders policies.
That was a tongue-biting moment.
Yeah, well, she's right. The Biden administration, most all of us are fighting it in one form or another. I'm not going to get into my venue or what we're doing, but it's a fight. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of that stems from border policies going south. Give me your thoughts on the border. I've been to the border 5 times now. We've embedded with, I have Doug, my sidekick is in St. George, Utah. He's on the line that he was talking to you. Doug and I have been down here, runs a video camera, and I don't have to wear a body armor because I make Doug go in front of me. So I'm kidding. So, yeah, we've been down there rolling around in the dirt. We've actually been from Yuma, Somerton, and San Luis clear east to New Mexico border, rolling around in the dirt with these guys, caught bad guys, UDAs, and really got a taste of it. But where we're coming from now is where current AG right now, Mark, is the only one besides myself that has come at this from a habitat, landscape, trash, junk in the Sonoran Desert, if you will. aspect. And for us, it's a big deal. We've got 5 game refuges down there, and they're absolutely trashing every bit of it. So that's kind of a side note. Open borders, bad national security, no national security checks. The fentanyl coming in from Mexico with their trade partner, China. What's your plan to stop it?
It's not going to be easy.
It's
Don.
not. That's why I'm asking. I mean, this is such a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and everybody's going to have to get in this fight and fight from different angles and from the different positions that we have. But the AG's role is to be your fighter in the courtroom. So that's exactly what I would do. And we have some attorneys general around the country, including Mark, who have been fighting back against the Biden administration and their change in policies to basically not enforce the laws that are on the books right now. That's what they're doing. They're just choosing not to enforce the law.
Absolutely.
And so the attorneys general are going to the courtroom and saying, hey, you've changed policies so that you are just choosing to renege your responsibility and duty under the law, and it actually affects our state when you do that. And they're having some success in the courtroom, and so I would continue to fight that battle in the courtroom. I became the Border Security Section Chief in May of 2019. That's when we had a migrant surge. We had all the caravans coming across under the Trump administration. Huge migrant surge, lots of people coming in, more than we had seen historically. And Trump then implemented some policies to deter people from coming here and crossing illegally if they have a bogus asylum claim. And it was working. And we were deterring people from coming here. And we actually saw a tremendous drop in the number of migrant crossings. And then Biden came along, and even on the campaign trail, Biden was basically offering, hey, people, come on over. Anybody who wants to come should come.
Absolutely.
And guess what? They took up the invitation, and they decided to come. And so we have had record numbers of migrants crossing the border, since he took office, and even a little bit before, in anticipation of him taking office. It is, thinking back compared to May of 2019, when it was very difficult for our Border Patrol agents to take care of all the humans coming across, and now to have far more than they had then. They're just tapped out in their resources.
Well, Lacy, I think one of the things you and I talked about, the drug trade isn't what it used to be. It was simply, there was a handful of pills, this, that, and the other thing for a while, and cocaine and marijuana. The marijuana is kind of downplayed. The cocaine is taking a backseat to fentanyl, and fentanyl is an indiscriminate killer in the U.S.
Right.
And I don't know how we stop that. I mean, during the Trump administration, we made some, as you indicated, some wonderful strides in curtailing some of the number of crossings that we were seeing. And now, I've said it in public, and I'll say it again. Joe Biden's working for the cartel. He's working for ISIS, Boko Haram, the Taliban, the Iranians. He accuses me of having a mullet, and I keep telling him the mullets are running Iran. So, it's just, we got a can of worms with this guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you raise a really good point. And I don't know that, you have very educated listeners on your show, but I don't know that everybody fully understands that the movement of migrants and the movement of drugs are done in concert. Those are not separate avenues.
No, they're not.
They're both controlled by the cartels. Sometimes the migrants are the ones carrying the drugs. Other times the migrants are the distraction to pull.
They learned that from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer.
The distraction
Yes,
method.
absolutely, they did.
Yeah, so they'll use the flow of migrants to just take Border Patrol resources away from a point in the border, and then that becomes a weak point where they can move fentanyl through. If you care about fentanyl killing Americans in this country, and it's currently the number one killer of young Americans,
Yep, it is.
Then you should also care about the movement of migrants and the cartels getting rich off of both of those things. One of the things we really need to do with fentanyl is to educate folks that if you take one of these blue pills and you think that it's oxy, but it's not oxy that was prescribed by your doctor, then you should plan on, one of two pills is going to be a killer. Because 42% of those fentanyl pills have a hot spot on them.
Bam.
That is a lethal dose for Americans. So,
We're some state, I'm not sure where it was, where they were telling you not to pick up a dollar bill that you find on the ground because it's probably laced with fentanyl.
Could be, yeah.
well,
And,
I
obviously,
think,
that'd be from somebody who handled fentanyl.
Oh, yeah.
right,
That's part of the drug money.
right.
Either that or somebody's intentionally throwing dollar bills out there to
Yeah.
mess people up.
Well, you know what we're seeing as late as yesterday, there were some new stats out. Fiscal year 2022, the migrant encounters on the southern borders between August 21 and May 31st this year. 67,000 from El Salvador, 156,000 from Guatemala, 138,000 from Honduras, 560 from Mexico, and the big number is 620,000 from other. And that other encompasses 160 different countries around the planet. And we don't have the stats on how many would-be terrorists there were, how many rapists, how many 13s, this. It's like a bowl of spaghetti. You don't know what in the hell's in it.
Well, we know at least 242 terrorists because that's how many were found on the terrorism watch list that were apprehended by Border Patrol in fiscal year 2022. So 242 on the terrorism watch list. Now, we all know that those are just the folks that are apprehended.
The gotaways. Talk to me about gotaways.
Well, at least 400,000 gotaways last year. And those are the folks that Border Patrol sees on a camera, right? They detect the movement of humans into the country, but they don't have the resources to go and get them. Those are the, known gotaways. There are also unknown gotaways, right? The folks who snuck in that weren't seen on a camera.
Yeah, the guys that you don't see?
Yeah, those are the folks that are terrorists, right? Because they're sneaking in.
Let's fast forward. You're in the office. You're the new AG. What's the first course of business?
Well, with respect to the border, and I'm going to come.
I want to stay on border issues.
Yeah. I think that the border is the number one issue facing our state and our country today. If we can't secure our border, we got a lot of other problems in this state and in this country.
Well, Lacy, you know, and I know, and other people don't necessarily know. I'm looking at Biden's numbers plummeting, so 39% of the people basically have their heads in the closet and don't understand what's going on. But this border issue, I mean, they publicized it 2 weeks ago. We're going to keep moving these migrants in deeper into the U.S., Midwest, and we got to stop it.
Yeah, right. And they're planning to get rid of Title 42, right?
Yeah,
which
they're
is
trying.
One of the solutions to stopping the flow of migrants, because it's a way for people to be turned right around and sent back to Mexico very, very quickly instead of going through more thorough immigration proceedings. And that's been in place since March of 2020. Now, it was based on the COVID public health emergency. I am over COVID. I think
so over it.
Yeah, the state of Arizona is over COVID. Yeah. But it is helping to stem the flow of migrants. And of course, migrants, COVID is the least troubling of the diseases, that migrants carry when they come across the border. Tuberculosis is quite common. Skin diseases are quite common. Anyway, the problem is that the Biden administration wants to get rid of Title 42, which will result in another 100,000 plus migrants each month being released into the United States. What's the plan, Joe?
Each month, yeah, that's the buzzword.
Yeah, there's way too many migrants who will now be released into the United States instead of being sent back to Mexico, and there just is not a plan for it. They don't have a plan for testing people for COVID. They don't have a plan for vaccinating migrants. Migrants are not required to be vaccinated in order to come here.
So true.
Unless they are put into the Remain in Mexico program. But do you know how many migrants are being put in the Remain in Mexico program?
Not near enough.
Just a few thousand.
Yeah.
So they won't use the Remain in Mexico program, which requires vaccinations. Instead, they just put immigrants, into the system here. They detain them in detention facilities, and then they go and offer them, hey, would you like a COVID vaccination? And you know what? Most of them say no. No, thank you. I don't want a
Why
COVID
would you?
vaccination. Meanwhile, in the last year, we've had mandatory vaccinations for our military service members, our law enforcement officers, anybody who owns a business with 100 employees or more. Like, Americans are being forced to get vaccinated against their will, but migrants, it's totally up to them whether they want a vaccination or not.
Absolutely. And now, I mean, I don't even want to get on that soapbox, but now they're starting to vaccinate infants.
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, this whole thing is a science experiment, so I don't want to detract and get on that.
So you would ask me, what am I going to do, day one on this issue? Number one, I'm going to beef up the drug enforcement unit. There is a drug unit at the Attorney General's office. They do a lot of good work of taking couriers off the street. The guy who actually has the fentanyl in his car, right?
Yeah.
And we have to do that. We have to get the drugs off the street. We have to try to seize cartel cash before it gets back to the cartels. But I want to not just go after those, low-level couriers. I want to go after the cartel leadership, which is something that I did when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office and when I was doing cartel wiretap investigations. I would go after the leader of the violent, cell of the Sinaloa cartel.
Leader of the pack. Yep.
Because that hurts a little bit. If you take off a disposable minion of the cartel that they're using for their purposes, that doesn't really create any pain for them. There's a little bit of financial pain with them losing their drugs or their cash. But if you take off one of their key leaders, then they feel that a little bit more. So I want to go after the cartels and actually take down the leadership. And the second thing is, which I mentioned before, is to fight back in the courts every single day. I'll give an example of something that Biden is doing right now. He has decided that he wants to allow immigration officers to make a final decision about folks' asylum claim instead of letting immigration judges do that. Right now it has to go to a judge. He wants to pack the offices of these folks, who would make immigration decisions with progressive leftist immigration officers, and then let them make the final decision about whether somebody gets asylum or not. Well, they're going to give a lot of asylum, grant a lot of asylum claims that otherwise would not have been granted.
No doubt.
That's a small change, but very sinister and could have a huge impact on the number of migrants who are let into this country who don't actually have, we are a very generous country. We're the best country
We need to stop it.
in the world.
Yeah.
But we're generous to somebody who actually has a legitimate need, who cannot live safely in their home country. I think of the Christians living in Syria when ISIS took over. Okay, those folks were being hunted down and beheaded.
Yeah.
Those are the types of folks who, we need to be reaching out to them to give them refugee status and help them to find safety, right?
Yes.
That's different than an economic migrant who would like to come here and work and send money home. That's not the same thing.
Yeah,
Not
we
even
just
close.
got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people from Ukraine into the U.S., and 2 of them came right after the invasion started. They made their way to Poland, Frankfurt, and then a nonstop flight into Mexico City, Tijuana, and then waltzed across the border. So I don't necessarily agree with what the administration has done for the Ukrainian refugees. I get it. We're very involved in trying to help them financially and get out of harm's way and get into the U.S. But, he agreed early on, well, we'll take 100,000. Okay, I get it. And we had to take advantage of that. But that's about the only good thing I've seen that he's done, trying to help those people.
Well, it's terrible what's happening in the Ukraine right now, and their sovereignty is threatened by a dictator. But this comes on the heels of giving up entirely on the people of Afghanistan. You just surrender them entirely.
Yeah, we're 300 days into turning our backs on them.
Yes, and then you turn around and say, "Oh, but we better help the Ukrainians." You just abandon in a country.
Well, that's a whole can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
Biden's corrupt, Zelensky's corrupt, Putin's corrupt, and my heart goes out to the people. We're trying to help the people.
Right.
And at some point in time, and I'll get off this, the Russian people are going to pay a price.
Right.
The whole world's. He's weaponized wheat. There's 20 million tons of wheat sitting there that can't get out. There's I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of gallons of urea for diesel exhaust fluid that can't get out. There's people in, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, there's demonstrations in the UK about rising food prices. I mean, even the Limeys are carrying signs. Like, they never do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're in some dire straits here, I believe.
No, I agree. I agree entirely. And, the rising food prices, it does not help if you have a lettuce field in Yuma that can't be, sent to the grocery stores
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
migrants have trampled through and the FDA says you're, no longer able to use that crop.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. It
Yeah.
happens. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we got so many things going on. How do you, as AG, how do you put these guys on notice relative to being able to litigate foreign countries? As an example, we've got situations here that you and I talked about briefly. Solar farms are taking over Arizona, and at the end of the day, we've got nothing but scorched earth going in to what should be multi-use lands. They're making a single use out of it, and at the end of the day, we've got something that's unpalatable for humans, wildlife, habitat. Gosar put a bill in, it failed. We knew it would when he did it, but it's a place to start that foreign corporations can't do anything on private, state, or federal land unless they live here for 5 years. Is that going to stop them from doing stupid stuff? No, but it's a place to build on. What are your thoughts on the way state land and federal land are being abused here in Arizona? You hit on the food aspect in Yuma County. Yuma County and Imperial County, 93% of the vegetables that we consume in the U.S. comes from that region. Okay, the cattle industry has been impacted by, we're dealing with David Lansford, and Arlington he's had grazing allotments on 15,000 acres. They just said, no, well, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to build solar farms where your cows are. Get your cows off. Wait a minute. And it's a food fight. I mean, this guy's out of business. He's done. So, your thoughts? It's a complicated issue. I'm sorry.
It is absolutely, is solar energy good on some level? Yes, but at what expense?
Here's the other caveat. Pardon me for interrupting. They're using Arizona state land assets. And where's the solar power going? Arizona? No. It's going to California. So my thought is, if you want to build a solar farm and waste the land, build it in California. You got plenty of wasteland over there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the same thing with water, right? It's a limited resource here that we have to share, and we have foreign companies who will come over here and plant crops, use our water, grow the crops, and send them abroad.
Absolutely. Well, that's one thing we've been tracking as well. The Chinese are buying up large agricultural concerns nationally, farms, ranches, this, that, and the other thing, and it needs to stop, man. I mean, it has to.
Yeah.
We're rapidly becoming a ward of the Chinese Communist Party by design.
Yeah, any Chinese government controlled corporation should not be allowed to purchase land here in Arizona or take our water or, build a solar farm and take the energy and send it next door. Any of those things. We should be a little more protective of our resources and our land here in Arizona.
How does the Attorney General manage the? And I'm going to call them out. This isn't anything I haven't told them. The State Land Department. They're allowing this crap to go on. BLM, the guy that was doing some of this stuff, magically is evaporated, got transferred to some obscure place for whatever unknown reason, which is what the federal government, they won't go, Ron, you're fired. No, Ron, we're going to transfer you to Never Never Land over here in New Jersey.
That's
we'll
true.
never see you again. Okay. So how do you manage that?
Well, the Attorney General is the attorney advisor for the other government agencies here in Arizona. Most of them, a couple of them have in-house, counsel, but that means that the Attorney General is advising these agencies about how to comply with the law. The question is, what is the law? And should we have some changes in the law at the state legislature that would prevent some of these things from happening and be a little more protective of our wildlife and our resources here?
Okay, and here's the big loaded question. How do you manage, and we've seen this, I hope we don't have a repeat of what we just had, but how do you manage the top dog, the governor, for making mistakes, not doing the right thing when they should do the right thing, you're the keeper of the gate. How do you manage that? Right.
Well, just want to start with the Attorney General is not the attorney for the governor. And the attorney,
I understand that, but you're.
Well, I'm saying that more for your listeners.
You're my watchdog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The Attorney General, doesn't work for the governor, is not employed by the governor, is disconnected from the governor, means that the Attorney General can work for the people and protect the people from things that are happening at the governor's office. And so one important thing that I think that the AG could do better is to be more vocal when there's something that the governor's thinking about doing that perhaps is a violation of the Arizona Constitution or the United States Constitution, and say, hey, I'm just going to tell you in advance before we get too far down this road that this is going to be problematic for you, and just send the message clearly. I talked to Sheriff Lamb, and
one of my favorite people. What a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. And one of his, concerns was that during COVID in particular, and executive orders, he didn't know what his lane was. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy. He figured it out, right? But he really wished that the AG's office would be more clear, and here's what the law is, here's what they can do, here's what they can't do, here's what you can do and what you can't do, so that he could have some cover fire. Hey, I'm gonna do what the AG told me was lawful for me to do, but instead, there was some silence at the AG's office, and I think that is one way that I could, one thing that I would do at the AG's office, bring some transparency and also some legal advice to help guide the Arizona people when things like that happen.
Sure. How closely does the AG's office work with county administration?
Well, the AG gives oversight to the county attorneys, but doesn't work directly with the county, for instance, like the Board of Supervisors. And in fact, the AG has a tool available in its tool belt to hold the county and the city and the town accountable if they violate the law. All that has to happen is that a state legislator can refer a violation of the law to the AG's office. The AG investigates, and if they find a violation of the law, they let the county know, hey, you're doing something wrong. If the county says, I don't care, which happens sometimes, then really? the AG can use the power of the purse and withhold funding from any of those governmental, agencies to say, sorry, you're not going to get funding because you're intentionally violating state law.
That seems to be a problem these days, is people not being held accountable.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
And what recourse do we have? We vote, hopefully we put the right people in office. And unfortunately, it doesn't always turn out that way.
Right.
A lot of politicians have their own personal agendas, which have actually nothing to do for bettering the lives of people. Getting back to the illegal situation, what's the humanitarian cost of all this that's going on at the border?
Yeah, so, the migrants crossing the border are absolutely being, taken advantage of by the cartels. They pay the cartels to get here, so there's some responsibility for the migrants because there's a large amount of money that they're paying to the cartels. It's very profitable for the cartels to move migrants, but simultaneously, there are women who are raped along the way. There are children who are used as a ticket to get in the United States, so they are bought, borrowed, or stolen in order to come into the country. There's labor trafficking. There's human trafficking, meaning sex trafficking. And, the Biden administration seems to totally ignore the fact that by inviting 250,000 migrants a month to come into the country, they're also creating this opportunity for people to be taken advantage of. The migrant deaths in the desert every year, the migrants who are drowning in the Rio Grande, on a daily basis, that all of those lay at the feet of the Biden administration. Lawful immigration does not end up with a humanitarian crisis. It's only illegal immigration that creates a humanitarian crisis.
Do you have any numbers on how many of these illegal immigrants that Biden has invited to his home?
I haven't heard him give out his address, but some governors are sending
Not like Governor
migrants.
Abbott, we're going to send them to Delaware.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
stuff. I find your answer is quite refreshing. I'm going to put you in the same category as Mark Lamb. I don't want either one of you coming for me.
No, you don't want me coming in the courtroom. That's for sure. I'm
done with courtrooms, by the way.
I have a very cheerful demeanor, and so people don't think that I'm going to come after them when I get in the courtroom, and I use that to my advantage. I'm very unassuming, and then I get them on the stand and I tear them to shreds.
Transform.
Yeah.
There you go. Sticking your finger in a fan. All right, final touch. How do folks get to your website? How do they donate to the cause? How do they contact you?
LacyCooper4AZ.com. That's FORAZ.com is my website. I would love for folks to go check out my bio on there and also my platform issues. And donate or spread the word to your friends and family if you like what you heard today. And my Twitter account is Lacy_Cooper. I like to keep people updated on the immigration issues on there.
Good. Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy Father's Day. Take your kids fishing, hug your bass boat. Man, we're out of here. We'll do it again next week.